Tonight, let's see, I will be talking about the VDOT paving program, of course, are on the agenda for the slides tonight. I'll talk a little bit about the statewide and Northern Virginia districts lane mile inventory, the planning and construction process that gets us for our paving program, a little bit about how we select the roads for paving, and how we determine the pavement condition ratings. I'll show you the interactive statewide paving condition map, which is a GIS map that's available on our website. We'll talk a little bit about the types of paving treatments that we use in the paving program, as well as our 2025 paving budget. And then show you the paving plan map. Again, this is GIS and web-based, and that's sort of probably what you're mostly interested in this evening. And then also quickly go over the pavement marking and stripings that are included, as well as some helpful information. So statewide, VDOT manages an lane mile inventory of about 130,000 miles in Virginia. And within the Northern Virginia district, that's just over 14,000 lane miles. The number here is 14,142, but that number actually is increasing regularly as we take in new roads through new developments and projects. And the 14,000 miles is enough to take you to the West Coast and back 2.5 times, to give you a little order of magnitude. So out of that over 14,000 lane miles of roads, that's broken down that roughly 51% of that is within Fairfax County, which obviously is the lion's share. And within Loudoun County, we have about 25% of that, and Prince William about 22%. Arlington, of course, is only 2% of that 14,200, and that is because Arlington County does maintain their own secondary roads. So the planning and construction for the paving program is a year-round project that we are continually working on. Construction, of course, you see that as only seasonal during the warmer weather months when we can put down asphalt, and that's generally April through October or November, depending on temperatures. But as I said, planning is year-round. We gather data for the next calendar year in the spring and summer. In the summer and the fall, we're going through that data and looking at schedules and preparing the contracts for the next year. We do advertise the contracts for the next year towards the end of the calendar year. And then, of course, we're closing out the prior year contracts after their season is over in November. In the winter months, we get the bids back, execute the contracts, which we usually do in February or March timeframe, and give contractors notice to proceed. This year, we were able to do that a little bit early with a couple contractors because it was kind of warm in March, so we were able to get started a little earlier this year. So our most common question is, how are roads selected for paving? We look at it's a data-driven approach where we look at the pavement conditions, and I'll talk about that in more detail on some of these next slides. We also look at traffic volumes. We coordinate with the VDOT and our locality partners to avoid locations where there's any upcoming projects. We also want to avoid locations where there's underground utility projects planned. And we do look for being able to group projects in order to have some economies of scale. So where we would do more projects in one location, that will help save mobilization costs. It also kind of helps with the impacts to the public as well sometimes. So we would be looking where we can to do entire neighborhoods versus just a single street. And then we do, of course, look always for feedback from our maintenance crews as far as what they're seeing out on the roads and recommendations from them if roads are going to need some attention. So this next slide is our automatic road analyzer, which is how we collect our data on the roads. And you may have seen this out on the roads at some point, but it does drive all the roads and takes in data that includes pavement distress, roughness, texture, rutting. It can measure for cracks, crack size, as well as number of cracks and spacing of cracks. It is enabled with capabilities to do digital scanning, take those digital measurements, and of course, the taking video and imagery, and then that's all GPS based, so that we're able to come back in the office and see where all that data was gathered. So we are gathering that data on an annual basis for the interstate roads, primary roads, and high volume secondary roads. So high volume secondary roads are those that have traffic of higher than 3,500 vehicles per day. The lower volume secondary roads, we do about 20% of those every year, with the goal of covering each and every of those roads every 5 years. So once the data is collected and analyzed, it's combined into a rating called the CCI number, which is, as you can see, the critical condition index. Um, and we look at our roads as a program, looking at the sufficiency percentage. So that would be the percentage of roadway segments that have a CCI with a score greater or equal to 60. So those roads are considered to be sufficient, and anything lower than 60 is, as you can see, poor or very poor condition, and those were the roads that we'll be targeting for our paving program. And then questions we often get is, what does the CCI look like? And a road that's in excellent condition, which is 90 to 100, really is your new roadways, newly paved or newly constructed. That middle image that you see is a CCI of 50 to 59 with a significant amount of cracking, and that would be one that would be targeted for the paving program. And then those lower two photos are very poor CCIs. Those are actually approximately a CCI of 35. And that, again, it's very poor condition, and we are actually not allowed to have any interstate pavements that have a CCI score of less than 35. So this next slide actually has a lot of data. It's the paving conditions that after we, took all that data and combined it into looking at every district and every type of road, as you can see here. We keep close track of this. The pavement condition for each district is shown, and then each category within that, with the interstate, higher volume primaries, lower volume primaries, and then the gray is the higher volume secondaries and lower volume secondaries. So you can see how well we're doing with our pavement conditions over all the districts. At the bottom of the screen, it shows you the target. We have a statewide target of the number of roads that have that CCI over 60. So interstates, higher primaries, and higher volume secondaries all have a CCI target of 82%. The lower volume primaries have a target of 75%, and the lower volume secondaries have a target of 60%. And looking across into Northern Virginia, you can see that we are meeting all but one target. Unfortunately, we are not meeting the targets for those higher volume secondaries right now. Again, the target is 82%, and right now we only have a sufficiency rating of 79%. So that would be an example of this is an area where we need to perhaps put some additional funds and make sure that we're including maybe more high volume secondaries in the next year paving program. So this is a tool, this data is used as a way to inform how, where to best spend the money and allocate our funds where they're needed. This next image is our GIS map of the pavement condition ratings. Again, this is a screenshot. It's available online. The screenshot actually is 2023. But if you're ever wondering what the pavement condition is in your neighborhood, on your street, or anywhere within the state, you can, it's available out on our website. And as you can see, it's color coded, blue being excellent condition down to the red being the very poor condition. So, areas where you see red is where we would be targeting our paving program, or hopefully there's some other projects or something else going on there. So the VDOT paving program generally does two types of pavement treatments. For the most part, we do preventative maintenance, which is the slurry seal, latex, or chip seal. We may do minor patching with those or some crack seal, but that preventative maintenance is targeted to extend the life of the pavement. And these seals are somewhat similar to what you might see on your driveway or something like that. They're a little more complex than that, but they're really just a top seal on it to extend the life. What we do, the bulk of our program really is the plant mix. And this is where you see the milling and the overlay. Sometimes there'll be some patching and the corrective maintenance. The restorative maintenance is a little more detailed, where there'll be a little bit deeper milling. But these are both, the plant mix are the bulk of what you'll see in the paving program. The full depth reclamation projects are very rare. They would be for a road that's in really very, very poor condition and probably very old. So that we might encounter one of those occasionally, but for the most part, we're doing mostly preventative maintenance and plant mix. So this next slide shows our paving budget in millions of dollars, of course, and we do show the history from 2019 to 2025. Obviously, down at the bottom, we have the 2025 budget highlighted here. And our budget for this year is $97 million, which will allow us to pave 726 lane miles, which is roughly about 5% of our inventory. We do have, as I mentioned, you may previously, the targets for the secondary. We're working on bringing up the condition index for the secondary. So we have almost $60 million in our secondary, and then maintaining that level for interstates and primary roadways. Unfortunately, our cost per lane mile is actually this year it's working toward us. It had increased in the past. Last year we had a kind of a high point of 150,000 cost per lane mile, but this year we're looking at about $134,000 per lane mile. Okay, this is kind of the meat of our program. This is a screenshot of our 2025 paving status map. Again, this is available online on our website. And obviously this is color coded to show the roads that we're planning on paving this year. Roads that are red are roads that are scheduled. If they're green, they're in progress, or blue roads are completed. As you can see, we have some roads in progress and this year already, and we even have a few roads that have been completed already. Again, we got a little bit of an early start this year due to our warmer weather. But this is an interactive map and something that'll change as projects change. It does have a search feature, so you can go in and type in your address or whatever area you want to search for, and it will bring you to that location. If you click on one of the links, one of the colored links, you can see the contact information, the name and the phone number of the construction manager that would be managing that particular segment of paving. So if you have any questions or concerns, you're able to reach out to them directly. And like I said, that information is available online, so you don't need to go through anyone else to get that. Okay, and then the pavement marking and striping is kind of not as large, of course, as some of our portion of our program. Generally, during the paving program, we're going to go back and replace the existing striping in kind. So whatever was there before is what will be restriped in that way. Occasionally, we do make some changes to the pavement markings. We'll make some minor adjustments, such as edge lines, perhaps adjust crosswalks or do a high visibility crosswalk where before it was just the regular two-bar crosswalk. Sometimes we're able to lengthen turn lanes or create turn lanes if pavement exists. And then we do, of course, coordinate with Fairfax County to look for locations where we can enhance the on-road bike networks or coordinate some kind of pedestrian improvements or road diets, even making lanes narrower to provide a wider shoulder. But any location where we've planned on doing some paving where maybe there's the opportunity to take advantage of implementing something that's also needed just through restriping is always a bonus. So let's see. So my last slide here is some helpful information. But we wanted to remind you of the website so you can go online if you have any maintenance requests or the need to report a road problem. You can report those through myvdot.virginia.gov or you can call 1-800-4ROAD. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you. Back to you, Hannah.
Great. Thank you, Kim. We'll go ahead and turn it over to Sandy now to present some information on FCDOT's role in the restriping portion of the repaving program.
All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Yep, there it is.
Cool. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sandy Clanfer. I'm a Transportation Planner 3 with the Active Transportation Team at Fairfax County DOT. You just heard Kim's very informative presentation about giving you an overview of this program. I'm going to be speaking to you today about some of our proposed striping modifications, and then after that, we'll have a question and answer session. Just so that we're all aware, all of these proposed striping modifications that I'm about to talk to you about are subject to VDOT approval. So just because we're showing them to you today doesn't necessarily mean we're going to be able to make them happen, but hopefully we will. So this program, as Kim mentioned, is a collaboration between VDOT and FCDOT. And VDOT, they figure out, as Kim described, which roads are going to be repaved each year. And then we review that paving plan, and we at FCDOT identify opportunities for improvements, new marked crosswalks, new bike lanes, opportunities for narrower lanes. And then VDOT develops striping and signing plans and coordinates the implementation. We at FCDOT then lead the public engagement, like the meeting we're all in now. VDOT will, as part of this process, identify and reconstruct any substandard curb ramps for accessibility, and any signage that's required is at the end of the process installed by FCDOT. So why are we doing this? Many of the roads in Fairfax County were built either with lanes that are wider than necessary, too many lanes, and these conditions encourage people to drive too fast, drive inattentively, and that makes the roads less safe for everyone. So for us, the repaving program is an opportunity to right-size these roads, right-size these lanes, provide new bike lanes, and do all of that at a very low cost. When we do this, we are careful whenever possible to maintain traffic capacity at signals, to maintain legal on-street parking spaces. And another of the benefits of doing this is that it helps us implement our planned bicycle network, which is part of the county's comprehensive plan. So just as an example of one of the repaving projects that we've done, this is Annandale Road, which we did a couple of years ago. And you can see the difference between the before and after. There are bike lanes now. The lanes are narrower, and that reduces speeding. And of course, there's still that parking on the right there. So we have, when it comes to painting bike facilities, there are three basic kinds. We used to mark sharrows, which are shared lane markings. We don't really use those anymore. Most of what we're painting now are either standard bike lanes or buffered bike lanes. And the difference between a standard bike lane and a buffered bike lane is that the buffered bike lane has a bit of extra space in between the bike lane and the vehicle lane. And that creates a little bit of extra safety and comfort for cyclists and makes it easier for us to come back later on and improve it further by making it a fully separated bike lane. So the reason that's important is that the more we can create those buffered or those protected bike lanes, the more we're able to open up cycling to more users. The standard bike lanes are great for the people who are really confident on a bike, who are willing to bike in lots of different conditions. But for a lot of people, that extra comfort, the extra feelings of safety that are provided by that buffer, by that vertical protection, it makes a big difference. So that's why where we can, we try and create those buffered bike lanes. And I just want to emphasize that bicycle infrastructure isn't just valuable for cyclists. It makes roads safer for everyone who uses them. It helps, it helps narrow lanes, which helps slow cars down a little bit. It adds a bit of a buffer between pedestrians and vehicles, which makes it more comfortable and safer for pedestrians. So this program really provides benefits for everyone who uses our streets. So with that, I want to start with the one proposed bike lane project we have as part of the repaving program for these three districts. This is the proposed bike lane on Dellwood Drive. It would add a single one-way bike lane on the northbound side of Dellwood Drive. The reason we aren't doing bike lanes on both sides is because there just isn't enough width in the road. This bike lane is dependent on VDOT approving us moving that center line over to make room for it. We put the bike lane on the northbound side because that's the side closer to the elementary school. That's Marshall Road Elementary School that this bike lane runs right past. And this bike lane will provide a connection from the 66 parallel trail to this elementary school. In addition to that bike lane project, we also have a couple of proposed crosswalk enhancements. We look at pedestrian crossing locations where there aren't crosswalk markings, and we see if those crossing meet the VDOT warrants for marked crosswalks. And we also check to see if there are any parking restrictions that are needed to improve the safety of the crossing. VDOT requires that we can only put in these marked crosswalks in locations where the existing curb ramps already meet ADA standards. Where that's the case and where these marked crosswalks are warranted, we upgrade existing crosswalk striping to high visibility, especially near schools and near transit stations. We don't have any new crosswalks proposed for Providence or Braddock districts this year, but we do have a couple for Hunter Mill. One of these is at Wainwright Road and North Shore Drive. This crosswalk is for pedestrians who are crossing Wainwright Road. There are no parking restrictions that are necessary as part of this. For those who aren't familiar, Wainwright Road is a semicircular road that intersects North Shore Drive at two places. At one of those intersections, it already has a marked crosswalk. At this intersection, which is the further west of the two, we are proposing this new marked crosswalk. This marked crosswalk is about a quarter mile from Lake Ann Elementary School, so we expect it will help students and parents walking to that school. The other proposed crosswalk is at Mustang Drive and Mountain View Court. It's for folks who are crossing Mustang Drive. That trail that you can see on the right side of the image there, that connects to Flores Elementary School. So once again, we expect that this crosswalk will be valuable for students and parents who are walking to school. And in this case, once again, there are no parking restrictions necessary on this street because the street is too narrow for legal street parking. And just to reiterate one more time, both of these crosswalk proposals are still pending VDOT approval. So before I wrap up, I just want to mention that if you have any comments or concerns about drainage issues, about signage, about vegetation overgrowth that's causing sight distance issues, you can report those to the MyVDOT portal. That's my.vdot.virginia.gov. You can also request road repairs through that portal or by calling 1-800-4ROAD. That's 1-800-367-7623. And also at the bottom of this slide here, you can see the webpage for this repaving project on the Fairfax County government website. With that, we are going to open it up for questions, and Hannah will let you know how that works.
Yeah, thank you, Sandy. So yeah, we will go ahead and take questions now and any comments from attendees on both VDOT's presentation and FCDOT's presentation. And to ask a question verbally, you can do so by raising your virtual hand, which is located at the top of your screen next to the three dots. And I will enable your microphone and call on you to ask your question. Once I do that, please go ahead and unmute yourself after I've called your name and ask your question or provide your comment. Please mute yourself after you've asked your question. It doesn't look like we have anyone calling in from the phone, but just in case, press *5 to raise your hand. And when you're called upon by your phone number, press *6 to unmute. And once you're finished, just press *6 to mute yourself again. And we will not be taking questions through the chat tonight. So you'll just need to ask those verbally if you have a question. So yeah, we can go ahead and get started if anyone has questions or comments. Yes, Jacob, let me go ahead and unmute your mic. All right, you should have microphone
Yes.
access now.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. My question is about the process for approving things like protected bike lanes. The concern of that I have around the county is that these bike lanes look dangerous, like very dangerous, where you have 50-mile-per-hour traffic or 60-mile-per-hour traffic. And so I'm talking about physically protected bike lanes. What would it take for VDOT to approve it? And if it can't be done within a year, why? My concern is that it just deters that from happening. So is there any talk about more efficiency? Because what I've observed, at least looked, is that it could take years to approve these projects. And I wonder, if that's even been discussed, whether local governments can move faster on these types of things.
Sure. I can take that question. So, in order to have a protected bike lane, we do first need to have a buffered bike lane in place. Typically with the bike lanes that we're proposing through repaving, although there aren't that many this year, we try to add buffered bike lanes wherever there is enough space so that once we have funding at a later point through other projects and funding sources, like we have the option to go in there and add the physical barriers to that buffer. Unfortunately, with the one presented tonight, that's not an option just due to the width of the roadway. There's not enough space. But through the repaving program itself, we're not able to actually add protected bike lanes because the scope of the projects that we implement through repaving are just limited to just striping on the pavement. So any physical protection would be outside of the scope of that program. But the county is looking into adding protection to some bike lanes. We just have to seek out other funding sources to do so. Does that kind of answer your question?
Answers one part of it, but the second part is about the time taken, right? And so, my concern I've done advocacy locally, and it'll just be hearing after hearing after process, right? And so I wonder if it's possible to get these down to a year or sooner for these sorts of projects, like especially if you have cheap buffers or like a crosswalk where the kid gets killed by the high school and then nothing happens, right? No, and then you have to wait and wait and wait. So, has there been talk about efficiency to get these projects approved faster?
I would say yes, there's definitely been talk about it, but I think a lot of people on all sides just share your concern for that. So definitely hoping to do more in terms of moving these along faster. I will say part of the issue is sometimes funding as well and just having a long pipeline of projects, but your concerns are definitely heard.
Thank you.
Hi, Hannah. It's Sally from Supervisor Walkinshaw's office.
Oh,
Can I
sure.
just piggyback onto your answer for that resident?
Of course.
I would suggest maybe reaching out to your supervisor and having a conversation with them about, or with their staff about your concerns regarding efficiency. There's a lot that goes into planning the projects, especially if they happen outside of the paving process. So I would just encourage you to chat with your supervisor's office. And if you're in Braddock, that would be me. But it might give you some clarification or understanding, and it would be good for them to hear your concerns as well.
Thank you, Sally. All right, we will move on to Joe next. I just allowed your microphone access, so you should be able to unmute. You'll still need to unmute. So if you're talking, we're unable to hear you. Still unable to hear you, but the microphone button should be at the top of your screen. We can try coming back to you, Joe. In the meantime, I'm going to move on to Tom. All right, you should be able to unmute yourself now, Tom.
Hi. First of all, I support the bike lane and the crosswalks that you mentioned. My question is for repaving projects where the road already has bike lanes, will they be preserved or improved? For example, I believe there's a short section of bike lanes on Lawyers Road that I saw was blue on your map, meaning it's in progress, or whatever color it was for in progress.
Yeah, so those bike lanes and all existing bike lanes will be replaced in kind. Those will remain in place, but with Lawyers specifically, we won't be making any changes to those bike lanes.
Thanks.
Yep. Any other questions? All right, let's call for any questions or comments before we go ahead and wrap up for the evening. All right, not seeing anything, but thank you again, everyone, for joining. And just as a reminder, feedback on any of these proposals can be submitted through April 22nd through the following channels. So you can submit a survey through our public feedback form on publicinput.com/F36384. You can also submit comments by phone at 703-890-5898 using the project code 5650. You can also send us physical mail. Attention Zachary Desjardins at 4050 Legato Road, Suite 400, 22033, Fairfax, Virginia. For more information on the repaving program or to review the proposed striping projects for your district, you can visit the project webpage at www.fairfaxcounty.gov/transportation/2025/paving-and-restriping-program. So this is going to conclude our meeting on the 2025 repaving program. A recording of this meeting will be available on the project webpage at some point tomorrow. And thank you again, everyone, for joining us and for your participation. We really appreciate it. Have a great night.